I know you were kind of telling me, when we were just talking a couple minutes ago, so it was October the 11th of 1973.
Yeah.
Can you take us back and kind of explain?
Yeah. Well, in October, I was working at a small shipyard in Pascagoula, and Calvin Parker was working for me, a shipbuilder. And sometime during the day, we decided to go fishing that evening, which I'd done many times after work. So when we got to the river, the Pascagoula River, it began to get late and the fish weren't biting. So we were going to try one more place up by the old Shawfield shipyard. That's where this thing happened at. And we were sitting there at a pier, fishing out into the river. And I think maybe I was reeling in. I don't remember now. But I heard some hissing sound behind me. And I raised up all, we were sitting down on the pier. I stood up and looked around. And there was something back there. It was hovered about that far from the ground. It's probably 40 foot long. I don't know whether it was round or whether it was oblong because of the way I was looking at it. But I know up toward what I'm assuming to be the front, it was something like two lights, pulsating lights, or they were blue. And it really frightened me. I didn't know what the heck it was. And by this time, Calvin he had got up on his feet, and we just instantly, there was a door appeared at that crab. A brilliant light from outside to where we were. And there were three things came through that doorway. Turn that book over on the back, you'll see what they look like.
Okay.
On the that's
Kind of like this?
primarily what they look like, yeah. They were very wrinkled, and I didn't see any eyes. And I know now, I didn't know then, I know now they were robots. But anyhow, they came around to the side of me. One took hold of this shoulder, and I felt pain in it, just instantly pain. Another one took hold of this shoulder, and I just went limp. And they weren't touching the ground. The light was off the ground, and they were just gliding out to where I was.
Like levitating?
Levitating. And I seemed to just, when they took hold of me, I just raised up to the height they were. And we was in that main light, and they was taking me toward the ship, and I noticed Calvin at this time, and when one took a hold of him, he fainted. I didn't know if him, he'd stay atop of fear. And he don't know where he went aboard the craft or not, and I don't know. But I'm assuming he did. Anyhow, they carried me on into that craft, and inside it was a round compartment or room. And it was very brilliant, like the light was coming out from the wall, the overhead, and the floor. And we stopped, they stopped me, it seemed like in the middle of the room. And they just left me, but I was still, I wasn't touching anything, in a leaning position. And I could tell that I couldn't move anything but my eyes. I could move my eyes. I could tell that they had left me. And something in the wall in front of me, it came out of that light in that wall and moved up in front of me about this far. It was probably this big around, and it appeared to me like a big eye. But there was something in there, it was some kind of instrument, or I can't describe what it was. But anyhow, this thing remained there for a few seconds or minutes, and it went downward. And of course I'm having to assume it went under me and came back up my backside, because after a while it moved back up in front of me again.
It like scanned you or something.
That's what it was. And it stayed there a few minutes, and they went back into that wall and disappeared. And I didn't know what to think of. I was terrified, but I couldn't say anything. And I don't know how long I was in there. I really don't know. But after a while, these things, they came back, moved up to me. I could tell by my eyes aside. They took hold of me. We turned around, and they carried me through that main light back where I were and put me down. They didn't throw me down. They put me down. I don't think they were trying to harm us anyway. But I couldn't, and I didn't know till a long time later on under hypnosis, I found out that there was a window in that room there by where this eye came out. And this is hard, it's even hard for me to believe. They were something like living beings, looked almost like us. I could see through that window. I didn't know that for a long time. It was something that was in my subconscious mind. And, but they looked almost like we did. And what they were doing, evidently, they couldn't live in our atmosphere, I don't suppose. And they had these robots to examine us. Well, we didn't distract their attention one way or the other, seeing they had something to do. And I tried to talk to them, and I couldn't hear myself. You can hear yourself talking. I couldn't even talk. And they don't know, I guess, what they were supposed to do. And when they carried me out there and let me down, I saw Calvin. And he was standing on the banks of that river with his arm outstretched like that. And he was going in shock. And the reason I know, I spent 20 months a little over 20 months in combat in career war. And I know how men act when they're going in shock. And when I couldn't get up, my legs were still weak. I was trying to make my way toward him to see if I could hit him. And I managed to get up on my feet before I got to him. And I couldn't get him to say anything, just like he was out of it. I shook him, and I even had to slap him to get him where I could talk to him. And I told him, he was screaming, what did they do to us? I tried to assure him that they didn't, I don't think they'd done us any physical harm, and they had gone, When I got him back where I could talk with him, then we didn't know what to do. I didn't want to tell anybody about it, They call us crazy and that, Things like that's just not supposed to happen. But anyway, we talked about it again. Before we got home, we decided that we'd call the sheriff's department and notify them it might be a threat to our country is what I was thinking about. And I could tell they thought we was pulling their leg. Anyhow, they sent 2 deputies over there, we were, and asked us to follow them to the station. So we followed them to the sheriff's department. And they kept us in there I don't know how long. They had him in one room and me in one room. And then later on, they brought Calvin back in the room with me, and they went out to do something. We didn't know it at that time. But they had a hidden tape recorder. And I think that copy of that tape, I think, is what really finally convinced them that something had happened to us. So Fred Dino was the sheriff. He's deceased now. And I made him promise me that there'd be no publicity about it. Just try to find out, get it to the proper authorities, whoever they were, We didn't want to get any publicity about it at all. Sure. So we left there without assurance that there wouldn't be any publicity.